What's the difference?
We are live.
This one should be, childhood basic. That's a good question.
Michelle?
But it's basic.
Yes, I'm ready, sorry.
Let's rise for the pledge and a moment of silent prayer, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins. Here. Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sorslittle.
Here.
Commissioner Allgaier.
Here.
Commissioner Wagner.
Present.
All present.
And I believe we don't have any minutes to approve, do we?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to pass out this. Special.
Oh, okay.
There's three sets. Executive session Tuesday, July 12th, that was moved to this month. Special session Monday, July 25th, and executive session Tuesday, August 9th.
Do I have a motion on any of those? Yes, Melinda?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. We're now at the point where we need to take a look at the agenda and the late edition request number 1, which is 11 on our agenda, is to be removed. Any other additions or deletions? Tricia?
And I just may not be seeing it here, but I didn't notice the item that we carried over from our executive committee meeting, which was authorization to develop a request for proposal.
It's number 8.
Number 8.
I'm just not reading. Okay, good, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in support of the agenda as amended?
There hasn't been a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I would make the motion to approve the
Thank you, Commissioner
agenda,
Rushton.
approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Commissioner Rushton. At this point in our agenda, we have public comment. You're welcome to come up and identify yourself if you would, please. You have up to 5 minutes to speak, and anybody who wants to be recognized, please raise your hand.
Mr. Chairman, just because I'm going to be short, wouldn't mind me going for it to be very brief.
Yes.
Well, not promise.
I promise, probably 30 seconds. Andrew Wayne Eddington with the Leelanau County Sheriff's Office. I just want to take a moment and express my personal gratitude, along with the gratitude of the sheriff and the office, for the support that the commission provided us to be able to purchase the boat that's out front. I think it's self-evident. We've got something that's a brand new tool that will allow us to do things we weren't able to do in the past on the inland lakes and some of the near shore stuff in the bay, that the tools we had before just weren't going to be able to do it. This will, and I have no doubt that at some point in time it'll save somebody's life, and that's due to the folks here who provided that support. I'd also like to extend an additional thank you to Commissioner Robbins, who volunteered his time to go over with me to Wisconsin. And if anyone has not seen the video that he took while we were water testing the boat in 4-foot waves on Lake Michigan, listen to the soundtrack. It's something you might normally expect to hear from But thank you very much sincerely, and it'll be a great tool that'll probably be in service of this county well past my life. So thank you very much. But as if anyone has any questions about the vote or how that went, I'd be glad to answer those at this moment. If not, I'll be done. Yes, ma'am.
Are you charging for rides yet?
No, but there are fights taking place between my deputies as to who's going to do it first. The only thing they're concerned about is no one wants to be the first person to put a scratch on it, because the sheriff has documented the whole boat, and as you can see, there's not even any paint missing from the engine. So, any other questions I can help answer?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, Susan Whedon, Centerville Township. Leelanau County has the highest proportion of water of any county in the United States. In 2011, Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore was voted the most beautiful place in America by Good Morning America. No doubt we are blessed to live here and have an obligation to give back by protecting the gift we have been given. The fact that there is a global water shortage when only 3% of the world's water is fresh compounds the need to be vigilant. We need to be part of the solution to protect our water by making sure that septic tanks are keeping the surrounding environment and water sources clean and safe. Let's make it happen for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Jim Coverstead, Lake Leelanau. I'm just going to read out something. I'm just going to kind of ad lib a little bit. Over the last year and a half, with all the discoveries from the multiple reports that have come out from places like Maricopa County and Mesa County, Antrim, and New Hampshire, among others. There's a lot of people that are not resting very easy with confidence in our voting equipment and the procedures we use. I do want to emphasize this. It's not the personnel that's running it or operating it. It's the equipment itself. The idea that it's computerized, software-driven voting equipment that we really do not know much about at all. We found out a lot in the last year and a half just from those reports. So there's already concern that's been elevated just from what's come out of those reports. Those reports done by national companies, I've got copies of them. In fact, if anyone would like it, I'd be happy to give you a PDF file of it if you'd like to review them. But there's concern. There was a little higher than normal turnout at the county township voting accuracy tests that went on throughout different townships. And we probably heard some of the feedback that came from some of those people that went. The turnout was much more than I'm sure they anticipated, and I know much more than one I attended last year where there was 2 people. Okay. But with the machines in suspect of what they do, how they do it, and the responsibility that we give the machine for actually determining what the count is of who wins this or who wins that, which isn't human driven or human controlled or human monitored because it's in a language or a program that we don't understand, raises concern. It raises great concern. And there was, after doing the demo in the townships, two of the townships that I went to, Sutton's Bay and Leland, there were several requests by individuals who just wanted, after the demonstration was done, just for peace of mind, would have liked to have filled out a few ballots and run it through the same system, expecting the same type of results, a one-on-one comparison that would have eased a lot of people's minds. Instead, They could not do that. They could not do that. It was phrased, we are not allowed to do that. We are not sure how to do that. A lot of excuses, but the bottom line was a few people at both those locations, maybe more, wanted to put their minds at ease. They weren't able to do it for reasons unknown. They just saw a demonstration done on a piece of equipment with a pre-formed ballot that was already printed. It wasn't marked with ink or felt. It was already printed to be one of the demo ballots to run the demo accuracy test, which you can really not conclude there was any actual accuracy done at that, other than a calculator. Please keep in mind too, voting machines have one primary function, one mathematical function. That's all they're really required to do, as complicated as computers can be. That function is addition. There's nothing in the software that should be related to any other mathematical function. The only other functions those machines should be able to do is sort, just like in an Excel program. You put it in columns, you put it in rows, but you're only adding one thing at a time because you're only scanning one thing at a time. You're only putting in one thing at a time. Could be multiple groups, but it's only one at a time. It's addition. We looked to have that demonstrated and we could not find it. It was not available to be done. That was requested, it was denied. So if you wonder why so many people now have a higher sense of suspicion about the machines, that's one reason. That's one very good reason. That's not even counting the multiple reports that are around the country of when you do upgrades with that software, which you're supposed to, by law, keep a backup of how it was during the election, not update over it or run updates on the same cards, which what happens when you do an update? What do you think happens with your phone or your computer? It deletes previous files. That was proven true when these forensic reports.
Sir, your time is up.
5 minutes, it went that fast? Seriously? Okay, well, okay, I've got these for you. This is a follow-up from last week, so I'll just hand them to you with no more further ado. But I presented you a petition last week. Thank you. And we've got, just put them here, we'll pass them down.
Your time is up.
I think that's all. That should cover everybody right there. Okay? Is that good?
Thank you very much.
I think there's 8, right? Including Michelle, 8. Thank you. Right. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hello again, my name is Alexis Whitman from Northport, Michigan. And I wanted to update you a little bit. I spoke last week about my firsthand experience with Dominion voting machines as an election challenger, trained election challenger representing the GOP party of Michigan. And in my experience, I did describe 6 election challenges I submitted for my experience, and that there had been multiple jams, 14 or more jams, 3 complete reboots where the equipment had to be unplugged and restarted each time and the recount started. And I have an update in that, in speaking to the paid election worker from the Democrat side. She said they weren't done until 2 in the morning. So that's 17 hours to count a tiny little township like Leelanau. The Dominion machines don't perform as expected to perform. Never mind the mystery of the algorithms within them. I promised to do a black box demonstration for you, and I'll do that maybe next time, but you all know what a black box is. And the mysteries of how those machines can manipulate votes has a very deep well of evidence, and no one wants to look into that well. And I understand that. It's too complicated, too mathematical, too complicated. I will say that I will remind everyone that Democrat Jocelyn Benson was found to have violated Administrative Procedures Act when she tried to have every absentee ballot signature just about approved with minimal scrutiny. And she and the election director, the director of elections, Jonathan Brater, were found to be wrong in their deliberate attempt to bypass the scrutiny of voter ID through signatures. So we should be aware that there are attempts at malfeasance throughout our state. My concern is not with the accuracy of this last election, but we are gearing up to a major election for our governor and our midterm candidates. And there's nothing more precious than our vote. It's our one opportunity to say what we think and feel. It's a holy thing. It really is. And any violations that we're sensing and picking up and researching and hearing about and studying just destroys that holy vote. Last time we spoke, the Leelanau Rag reported that there were half a dozen people here about election integrity. And I would ask, because there were actually about twice that many people here with this issue. So I would ask for those who are here tonight about this issue about election integrity to raise your hands.
Address just the
Okay,
commissioners.
okay, I'm sorry. I did that last time too. I apologize. So there are more here. And then, as Jim said, I picked up 13 signatures asking for total transparency and preservation of all election materials. I think that's a simple request. And there's a petition going around gathering signatures, and it will continue to grow. This is a problem that will not go away. And I do ask that you make it a concern of yours as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I left time on the clock.
Anybody else? Yeah. Yes. Go.
I'm George Wellman. I'm a retired chemist, and I wanted to talk to you about something that you talked about at your last meeting. I wasn't here for it, but it's polypleural alkylated substances. These are something that the fire departments had used because it's a material which can be sprayed. It's relatively volatile. But they do have a major problem associated with this. And that is that they are extremely stable molecules, which is maybe somewhat unusual. We're always worried about things that are unstable. But polyfluorinated alkyl substances have a fluorine on every carbon instead of hydrogen. And they're used to put out fires because they're very good at doing that. But the problem that we have with it is that the compounds are extremely stable. Carbon-fluorine bonds are one of the most stable chemical bonds that exist. So you have a molecule that's maybe got 10 or 15 carbon atoms, where it would have 2 hydrogens on every carbon. Now it has 2 fluorines. And the problem is that they're so stable that once they're out there, they don't go away. Carbon-fluorine bonds are one of the most stable bonds known. So molecules that have just carbon and fluorine are around for a long, long time. And the stability of them is well known. The toxicity is not so well known. I don't know what the toxicity is, and they were used by fire departments to put fires out, and they did a very good job of that, but nobody really knows what the biological impacts are going to be, because once that compound is out in the ground, it never goes away. It's there for as long as any of us will be here for, for a long time. So I think that the issue that you guys have discussed is what to do about the septic systems for new areas and so forth. My view is that the septic systems have a problem because the groundwater eventually makes it back up into your water taps. And you don't want that polyfluorinated alkyl substances to be coming into the water that you drink. So you've talked before about whether you want to have any new ordinances around, or what the ordinances would be around new buildings, new houses that are put up. I think you need to learn a lot more about what this substance is. And I would suggest that you start talking to the people in Traverse City, because you've probably seen it in the paper where PFSS is one of the problems that they're having. They don't know what to do about it. I'm telling you, don't drink water that's got that in it. And if you don't test for it, you don't know whether you're drinking it or not. So I think I would suggest that you establish a small group to look into this, talk to the people that in Traverse City that have looked at this already, and think about what you want to do with respect to septic systems. Any questions? I am a chemist, by the way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you have him identify the name of that product?
Polypleural alkyl substances,
Or PFAS.
PFAS is the short name for it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Glenn Gotchel. I'm from Lake Leelanau. Thank you. And I just want to kind of tag on to something that happened last month. Last month, you heard from prominent politicians like Hillary Clinton, our vice president, and several others who testified to voting machines being manipulated and hacked. So here are some supporting cyber expert professors from major universities confirming and testifying to the legitimacy of their statements. And if I can get this open right and running.
I know
and
America's
shut me
voting
down when
machines are
the
vulnerable
time's up.
because my colleagues and I have hacked them repeatedly. We've created attacks that can spread from machine to machine like a computer virus and silently change election outcomes. And in every single case, we've found ways for attackers to sabotage machines and to steal votes. Across the country, there are about 52 different models of machines. They fall into essentially two styles, ones that scan a piece of paper or ones where the voter just interacts with the touch screen. And many of them have been analyzed now by researchers looking for security vulnerabilities. In every single case where a US voting machine has been analyzed by competent security researchers, they've found vulnerabilities that would let someone inject malicious software and change election data. Every single case.
The better or the more efficient way of hacking machines would be to subvert them all through the machine that's used to actually program those machines. So prior to each election, the county election office or the voting machine vendor will actually program memory cards for that election. It tells the machine who are the candidates, what are the the contests being decided, and that gets inserted into the voting machine. If you can alter, if you can subvert that machine that is used to program those memory cards, then you can pass rogue software to the voting machine.
Voting machines are not connected to the internet. This is something that you hear all the time in the US from election officials. Unfortunately, it's not actually true. And many new voting machines come with 4G wireless modems so that they can be connected to the internet from the polling place in order to upload the results faster. Now, to me, that sounds crazy. Why would you want to put your voting machines on the internet right in the middle of the election, potentially at the most vulnerable time?
Studies conducted in 2007 by the state of California, state of Ohio, state of Florida found security vulnerabilities that could take advantage of these to engineer viruses, where one compromised voting machine could then infect eventually the entire fleet of machines for an entire county. Typically, at the end of the election day, you move a memory card through each of the machines in the precinct, and that's to collect the vote totals. That process can spread a virus, and there are other processes. The details vary from machine to machine.
When you say hacked, what were they able to do once they gained access to the machines?
So all sorts of things. They could manipulate the outcome of the vote. They could manipulate the tally. They could delete the tally, and they could compromise the vote in any number of ways.
The machines used in Georgia have been demonstrated to be hackable through a virus that's carried on ballot definition cartridges, very much like the Stuxnet virus was inserted into nuclear centrifuges in Iran.
There are a number of states that outsource their reporting of elections to third parties, some of which are corporations based in other countries like Spain. So you've got to trust that the aggregation of the votes and the reporting of the votes is accurate as well.
I'm pretty sure my undergrad computer security class at Michigan could have changed the outcome of the 2016 Michigan election if we wanted to. It is that bad. And we have a combination of very powerful adversaries and unfortunately quite vulnerable and obsolete systems. That's why I say it's only a matter of time.
Unfortunately, in a lot of these systems, the audit trails are just as vulnerable as the other aspects of the system. So there may not be good forensic evidence of a successful intrusion. With the current design, we cannot be universally confident that it hasn't happened. And it's probably only a matter of time before it will. I come here today as a computer scientist who spent the better part of the last quarter century studying election system security. As you're well aware, the integrity of elections across the US depends heavily on the integrity of computers and software systems. Unfortunately, much of this infrastructure has proven dangerously vulnerable to tampering and attack, and in some cases in ways that cannot be easily detected or corrected after the fact. These vulnerabilities can create practical avenues for corrupt candidates or foreign adversaries to do everything from cause large-scale disruption on election day to potentially.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, please, ma'am.
Hi, Dana Getzinger, Elmwood Township. I'm just curious, I mean, so we can bring in a video of whoever we want from wherever we want and as a public speaker during this time? Is that how public comment now goes? It doesn't have to be from the public. It can be from whoever I want to show you.
The purpose of this is your public comment. If we have an answer for you, we'll get back to you later.
Okay, it just seems odd to me that I could bring a video from with no recommendation of who did it or who said it or whether it's anywhere near accurate and use it as public comment. It just seems a little bit odd.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Renee Weiler and I'm from Lake Leelanau. And I have been reviewing the audit from the cybersecurity experts. And this is Russell James Ramblin Jr. And his group is a group of globally engaged professionals who come from various disciplines to include Department of Defense, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, and the Central Intelligence Agency. And they go on to list their credentials. But basically they're saying, we conclude that the Dominion voting system is intentionally and purposely designed with inherent errors to create systematic fraud and influence election results. The system intentionally generates an enormously high number of ballot errors. The electronic ballots are then transferred for adjudication. The intentional errors lead to bulk adjudication of ballots with no oversight, no transparency, and no audit trail. This leads to voter or election fraud. Based on our study, we conclude that the Dominion voting machine should not be used in Michigan. They go on to say the allowable election error rate established by the Federal Election Committee guidelines is 1 in 250,000 ballots or 0.0008%. We observed an error rate of 68.05%. This demonstrates a significant fatal error in security and election integrity. And this is very detailed, but I'm just going to peruse this really carefully. In Central Lake Township, there were 1,222 ballots reversed out of 1,491 total. This resulted in an 81.96% rejection rate. All reverse ballots are sent to adjudication for decision by election personnel. That should not be happening in our election system. And then they go on to say that the election event designer log shows that Dominion ImageCast precinct cards were programmed with new ballot programming on 10/23/2020. And then again, after the election on 11/5/2020, these systems changes affect how ballots are read and tabulated. And our examination demonstrated significant change in voter results using the two different programs. In accordance with the Help America Vote, this violates the 90-day safe harbor period, which prohibits changes to election systems. And I'll go down here quickly and say the only reason to change software after the election would be to obfuscate evidence of fraud and or to correct program errors that would decertify the election. And it looks at all of the office or the Jocelyn Benson's, the Secretary of State's, and says these are all false. Her assertions were false. Then we also have the Dominion Voting Machines is a Canadian-owned company with global subsidiaries. It is owned by Staple Street Capital, which in turn owns by UBS Securities LLC, of which 3 out of their 7 board members are Chinese nationals. The Dominion software is licensed from Smartmatic, which is a Venezuelan-owned and controlled company. Dominion servers locations have been determined to be in Serbia, Canada, the US, Spain, and Germany. And also in here, I'm not sure where it is, but it says that the security logs are missing. They're deleted. They're gone for 2020. But they still have the ones from 3 previous years. So where are those missing logs? That is really important because that tells, what's going on with the security. And it just goes on. And I would like to give you a copy, the chairman. And that concludes my little spiel here.
Thank you. Give that to the clerk. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I just have one question. What machines did we use in 2016?
Would you please identify yourself?
Pardon? My name is Barbara Schneider. I live in Casson Township. My question is, what voting machines do we use in 2016? Do we use the Dominican machines?
The purpose of.
To Michelle Crocker, I guess I'm asking her.
You could call the clerk later if you have a question for her, but you're supposed to be.
Can I question you then, Ty? Do you know what the machines that we used in 2016?
I'm telling you, this is public comment time. And
Okay.
you can speak to us. Answers will come later.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Thank you.
My name is Harry Steffens. I'm from Leelanau Township. What I've just handed out to you is, and I apologize for the small print, as best I can do, guys, but what this is a packet capture. And that's, they call it PCAPs for short, but a packet capture is when you capture an image of what 2 computers are saying to each other. And this happens really fast. But if you slow it down, what it is you've got a packet of information that goes out to this computer. So the source computer sends it to the target computer. Then the target computer answers back and says, this is what I received. Is this what you meant to send?
And that communication back and forth goes on. Now, this is just rapid at the speed of light, okay? So it all happens without us even knowing about it. But this packet capture, and I may be wrong, but I think this was put together by the NSA, but maybe the CIA, FBI, I don't know. One of those agencies put this together. But anyway, from the 2020 election, and this particular sheet here has what happened in Michigan. So in the middle of the page there, I highlighted the line for you. I know it's kind of hard to read, but on November 3rd at 4:23 in the afternoon, the source IP, that's it. An IP is an address of a computer. So here's a computer sitting somewhere in MIE state or county in Japan. I don't know if they call it province. I don't know how to even say it. But the country of Japan. So some guy sitting in Japan, okay, hacked in. If you go over a couple of columns, you see the Leelanau County clerk. So this guy in Japan hacked in. And then if you go all the way to the right, you see that he put in 14,000 or 1,400 votes for Biden. Okay. Now, when I questioned the county clerk about this, she says, well, that means that 1,400 people came up to the voting machine and just colored in one dot for Biden and put it in the machine. And I'm telling you, I don't know anybody that does that. I don't know anybody who knows anybody that does that. I do not find that an acceptable explanation. However, I do find it more reasonable to think that machine was hacked and somebody went in there from Japan, some computer in Japan, and went in there and put in 1,400 votes. So I guess that's all I got. Thank you guys for looking at.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, my name's Carrie Onan, Centerville Township. And hello again. Thank you to each one of you for all you do for us and for the opportunity to speak with you today. I come here today to express my concern about the integrity and accuracy of our local election process. My concern is with the system itself, in particular, the computerized software-driven so-called voting machines. After hearing these three gentlemen and two ladies bring up very good points about these machines, the Northport machine jamming, the irregularities, not performing as promised, I'm all the more concerned about the Dominion machines themselves. Additionally, in our recent primaries, as most of us are aware, machine failures were reported throughout the country, including our state and our county, Lapeer, Metamora townships, just to name a few. We must get rid of these machines and return to paper ballots hand counted. Without trusted and transparent elections, we are not a free people, no matter which side of the aisle we're on. We're certainly not a representative republic without trusted and transparent elections. For all the reasons listed by these ladies and gentlemen, we are not okay with the lack of transparency these machines irrevocably create. We expect you, our trusted and elected officials, to have a problem with this lack of transparency as well. We want these machines replaced now with paper ballots, hand counted, before we cast another vote, as quickly as possible, well before the midterms. Now, we expect you, our trusted elected officials, to want that as well. As most of us know, in 2006, George Soros began his Secretary of State project in the US. Over a decade later, we're now living the results of his success in electing Soros-supported secretaries of state all over the country. I know that's kind of old news. Most people know that already, but that's exactly what we have in Michigan. That's exactly what they have in Wisconsin and many other states in the US. So when we were told repeatedly by the townships, a lot of us did attend those accuracy tests for the machines. When we were told repeatedly that the state handles that and the state tells us we can do that, but oh no, we can't do that. The state says we can't do that. We heard it a lot, and what it did was it caused more concern. It certainly didn't put our minds at ease. So that plus, you know, as I said, all the details that everyone else has already brought up. I am not a computer person, so I won't go too far into that. We do know the Soros influence is a pervasive problem, and we fully understand we cannot immediately remedy that. But what we can do is take immediate action locally to restore power where it is constitutionally designed to rest. That is in the hands of the people as much as legally possible. So moving forward, we ask that you vote as other county commissioner boards in the country have done to remove all Dominion machines from our elections. We ask this in order to regain and protect our most sacred constitutional right as American citizens, no matter which side of the aisle we're on. To that formidable task, there's a growing number of concerned citizens quite ready and quite willing to assist, to step up and help achieve this transition in a timely manner. We do expect to see action from you now. And please know that we understand the significant corruption you face at the state and federal levels. We understand that. We are fully aware that constitutionally, as I'm sure you are, we as a county have rights they are not to touch. The state and federal are not to touch. And one of those rights is running our elections. We as a county have providence over that as set forth in the US Constitution. And so we respect all of you to have the courage to stand up to the state. And when you do, because we are your neighbors and friends, and because we love and respect each and every one of you as fellow residents of our beautiful county, we expect you to take the necessary steps now to rid us of those machines. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Dawkins.
Well, this has been interesting. I'm glad I'm near the end. Good evening, everybody, on a nice sunny summer day. First of all, I put together the first two Women's March in Traverse City, and I know I've heard somewhere along the line that Soros paid for that to be done, and I'm still waiting for my check all these years later. Soros has nothing to do with what's going on. A public comment made earlier this month to this board stated that 77% of Republicans who are ordinary people doubt the integrity of our elections. What are they basing this on? Since the 2020 election, 63 lawsuits have been filed by Trump or his minions contesting election processes, vote counting in the vote certification process in multiple states. All have been dismissed or dropped due to lack of evidence. Yeah, we've got all these folks coming in and showing us the evidence. What happened in those 63 cases throughout multiple states? Judges, lawyers, and other observers describe these suits as frivolous and without merit. These include judges appointed by Trump. Son of a gun, how'd that happen? One stated that evidence was not provided to back up their assertions. Guess they should have called these folks in. Just speculation, rumors, or hearsay. Another judge sanctioned the attorneys, ordering them to pay the legal fees incurred by Michigan authorities and to take legal education classes. These attorneys were also referred to the states where they are licensed to practice law for possible disciplinary action. The judge wrote, the attorneys had scorned their oath, flouted the rules, and attempted to undermine the integrity of the judiciary along the way. Another result of these frivolous lawsuits was the suspension of Giuliani's New York law license and his Washington, D.C. license. This is the guy who went down to Georgia and tried to tell everybody that their election wasn't correct. What is going on with this so-called election fraud? Dominion is suing for libel. The defendants have maintained that statements about Dominion's voting machines being rigged or manipulated were mere expressions of opinion, not statements of fact. We're talking about Fox. Fox is telling us that was just their opinion. It's not true because it's not factual. And yet we've got people who are believing them. The courts have concluded, 63 cases have concluded that Dominion has adequately alleged that each of these defendants made false and defamatory statements of fact about Dominion, and they did so with actual malice. Well, I think the courtroom should be in here too to hear what's going on. And what about 2016, when Dominion machines were used in the presidential election? I have not heard any complaints about election fraud for that year. I wonder why. In the 2020 election, Dominion was used in 351 counties out of 731 counties. Trump won 283 of those counties with the Dominion machines. Oh, I guess there was no hacking going on then. During testimony under oath, former Attorney General Bill Barr, again, a guy appointed by Trump, said it was like playing whack-a-mole, trying to investigate silly and bogus claims. Barr also stated that the Trump campaign cashed in on spreading misinformation about the election results. So here is where we're going. As of June of this year, Trump and his allies have raised $250 million through campaigning on claims that the election was stolen. Those ordinary Republicans who question the integrity of our elections have been duped by the master con man. Someone who planted the seed before we even had that election that there was going to be problems. I was also a trained poll challenger at the August election. In fact, Glenn and I he was the Republican, I was the Democrat here in Leland Township. And I was impressed by the professionalism of the township's election workers. Questions and issues regarding voting were promptly addressed and resolved. I have no doubt that the other poll locations experienced the same, due in large part by Michelle Crocker's guidance in educating of the public and clerks. Our county had the highest voting turnout in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call on anybody else, I just want to remind us that public comments should be directed at the county commissioners, and please do not reflect back to the audience. We're here to listen to you. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Bill. Thank you.
Bill Wiesner, Elmwood Township, and we demand honest voting in our honest elections in our Leelanau County by replacing Dominion voting machines with secure paper ballots. Find out, read 10 of my flyers at tcfamily.org. And during the 2016 election, there was much fraud going on. It's just they didn't expect Trump to get that many votes. So they weren't able to overcome it. But there was a lot of fraud going on. You could see it in everybody's surprise, because anyway, that was the way it was planned. And as far as the cases being lost because there was no evidence, as far as I know, the only one that looked at the evidence was a guy in Antrim County, and he said that William Bailey had no standing. That's why these cases were thrown out. None of the judges are strong enough to stand up and hear the evidence. There's overwhelming evidence. And you have a link to one of the reports at Antrim County showing 29 pages where the probability of those statistics occurring and being able to project, Dr. Douglas G. Frank projected them with 0.997 average accuracy in the 9 counties. This handout that I've given out is it's Michelle Clerk Crocker's comments a couple meetings ago, and then some of the questions that I came up with. So you can read through those. Some of my questions were, your job is not to change people's mind, it is to seek the truth wherever you might find it. And just to keep my time down, and I would suggest all the commissioners, there's nothing more important than this, than election integrity. We're slaves if there's not fair elections. And watch the summit, the Moment of Truth Summit this weekend. You can watch it on television. Saturday night is a very good movie for, I don't know, about 2 hours probably. It's about the machine fraud. Sunday afternoons, all about the machine fraud. And okay, I'm just gonna, let's see. Again, he says Dominion doesn't program the machines, our machines. Well, don't we trust Dominion? If we don't trust them to program our machines, how do we trust their machines? If you trusted them, you let them program the machines. And Eric Coomer, he's their Department of Strategy and Security for Dominion. He said in an Antifa meeting, somebody was concerned about Trump winning. He said, don't worry about that effing Trump. Trump's not going to win. I made sure of that. How do we answer that? Anybody who's got authority here. You need to stand up and you need to see this weekend, all 15 clerks should be watching that and they should stand up individually. Who elected them? Who are they responsible to? And one other thing was mentioned, I think, by the clerk when she spoke, that 38 other states get all this data. It's all worked with together. Well, that's where pages 1 through 4 that are attached, talking about ERIC, this electronic registration information center. We say both Republicans and Democrats. Well, this one is developed by all Democrats. And yes, Soros, I believe, was involved with this heavily too. And you can just read through the subtitles there too. But here's an article, here's another one. Could mark down on this. Will the 2010 US Census data be used to fraudulently register voters? This was written by Kurt Hyde. You know what was written? November 1st, 2010. They foresaw what's taken place. And the probability of fraud, that coefficient has gone up from like 50% in 2008. And in 2016, it was 90%, and now it's 0.997. Dr. Douglas G. Frank can tell you how many ballots are going to be cast in every county just by that. And why is the Secretary of State of Michigan not releasing the ballots cast numbers in Michigan since they've been doing it since 1948 all the way through 2016? How come she won't release that? And before,
excuse me, your time's up. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Stephen?
Good evening. Just a comment that I believe the county, Leelanau County's functions as mandated and as essentially required are well taken care of. In a recent county meeting, I asked that a 2-paragraph statement be read, and it was denied. It was a public comment statement, it was denied. I'm here to talk about the septic ordinance foolishness. Here's some preemptive statements. Most property closings now require septic inspections. Septic pumpers are required to report to county health deficiencies discovered during pump out of tanks. It happened to us 59 years ago. It reported something wrong immediately to the health department. The health department was there in minutes. There's nothing partisan about this issue except politics. Electors did not lawfully petition commissioners to do this ordinance. For attention seekers in public office, doing something is always doing good. We are chasing a solution for a non-existent problem. Areas of need for the last 30 years have been covered by septic systems. News articles have described several meetings, several panels. We may have spent $500,000 in county commission meetings since the 1990s on this issue. But never in one of those have I seen a document that has indicated the reasons, like need, necessity, or justification. It's never been determined or proven. Doesn't this strike us as odd? Perhaps the county health department has failed to do its job, so they must be rewarded with a larger bureaucracy, with a make-work project. My conclusion, just like the wasteful silliness of some board members associated with the gross mishandling of the removal of the finance and human resources from the clerk's office, some board members want to waste more taxpayers' money for a hit and miss for on-sale transfer of property ordinance. From my perspective, such wasteful commissioners' decisions are best described as sloppy and qualifies them to be unfit to serve in public office. Further, to me, it seems that commissioners make harmful decisions under the color of law and the appearances of fraud. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing no other public comment, any commissioner comments? Yes, Commissioner So.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming this evening to speak, I really do. And I don't doubt the sincerity of people expressing their concern about the Dominion Systems machines. And I appreciate the concern and effort of people who've gone to give us displays of things they've recorded off the TV, articles they found on the internet, statements, their own personal statements. And I'm very concerned that the assumptions that are being made are being taken as fact. I heard Ms. Getzinger make a statement that I was sitting here thinking to myself, what are the sources? What are the names of the people that are being shown to us? And maybe you have them. It would be wonderful to have that information and where it came from. I just sit in fear that it is so easy for misstatements and well-intentioned information that's based on assumption to be taken by others as fact and then passed along. Our county clerk and her staff have worked very hard to ensure a safe and efficient election. And I think it would help everyone if we were collectively informed about our election process. And I would ask our clerk if she might be willing to give the same excellent presentation she gave at Rotary, going into details of how the system works, exactly what's going on, what parameters are being tested in those machines and cards. I think it would be helpful. And then if you still have questions, and that, fine, this is good, come back, ask. But let's start with a common basis of information rather than everyone bringing in snippets they found on the internet or things they've heard. I think you're all trying to reach the same thing, and that's a fair election that you can feel comfortable with. But let's back up a little bit and let's see if we can't all have a common ground of understanding first. So, Michelle Parker, if you're willing, I think it would be a huge help. to do it at maybe our executive committee in September.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rushing.
Yes. In my early day, I served under Michelle Crocker. At that time and today, she dots her i's and crosses her t's. So I don't think that there is any question about the clerk and her process. I think what we're hearing from the community is their distrust of the process with the machines. So there is a distinction. And they may have valid points. Anytime you're using anything electronically over the internet, there's always a chance. We found that out here at the county. It was quite an incident when our system was hacked. So I'm just saying, I welcome the voices that are speaking out. I think they have a legitimate concern. And I'm not quite sure how the problem can be resolved. I don't know if we have those answers. Maybe that's something we as a board should look at and work on with the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
I too have been, I think, sure that I understood our voting system here. And I was an election challenger for years. I've done our clerk's training. I've stayed till midnight and watched the count. In the last election, I was in Caston Township from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. I want to remind, and I have the utmost respect for the people who work. They're so proud of working in our elections. It just shines out of them how proud they are to do this civic duty. I'd like to remind everyone that we have paper ballots also. And whenever there's been a check, they always match. We aren't just dependent on a voting machine. We have a cross-check system. It has worked for years. I have to say that it is just curious that there's only one person who was elected out of that whole election and out of the elections for years and years where we're doubting the totals. We trust that everybody else was fairly elected. So I hope that we can trust our clerk to continue to run fair elections. Please remember we have backup paper ballots, always have. I hope you will come to hear our clerk's presentation. She does as good a job as that as she does running our free and fair elections. And I'm really glad that all of you are so invested in understanding and trusting our election results.
Any other commissioner comments? Well, I would like to say that I concur with the phrase on the clerk's office and how she's handled the election, but I would extend that to the township clerks as well. They work as a team. I want to make a comment about public comment. I know people come here and they have issues and they have concerns and they have questions. And I want everybody to know we listen to you. We cannot, during public comment, respond to questions. But if you call me, if you call our administrator, if you call any of us, we will try to get you the answers to the questions that you raised. I thank you for the civil nature in which you made your comments tonight. Thank you. We are now at Communications, proclamations, and presentations, and I don't believe we have any. We have now 7 items on our consent agenda, and I'd like to read a statement about the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one motion without discussion. Any commissioner may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for a full discussion. Such request will automatically be respected and will not need a second. So are there any items on the consent agenda that any commissioner would like to remove? Commissioner Rushton?
I have a question in regards to the number 3, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. That was a motion that was moved forward. There was no discussion on that issue. We don't know the result of that issue.
I was actually gonna say that we take that off, and I can give an update on the.
Okay, so that would be number 1, and it seems to me we have another request to move something forward. I'm not sure if it's on the consent agenda.
That's number 8, I believe.
Yeah, that was number 8.
Thank you. So I would request that be.
We will
pulled
take,
from
we
the
will take
consent.
3 off, and the administrator will speak to that during his portion of the agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved 7-0. We are now down to action item number 8.
No, you did number 3, because I was taking the consent.
Number 3, because we took that off there. Thank you. Yes, we're now going to get an update from our administrator on the brownfield.
Yeah, and Mrs. Gallo had a conflict, so she's not here today to give an update. This was just forwarded last week, so Commissioner Rushing is correct on that. The Casson Township voted not to approve the brownfield plan. And several of you commissioners have asked for legal opinion if the county has any options. So that's in the process of being developed. So Mrs. Gallo will be here next month. And by then we'll have a legal opinion if the county can move forward without the partnership of the township.
Any discussion or questions? Linda?
Well, I will have several when it comes to that issue. Having to do with obviously the township and respecting their decision and impacting. So thank you.
Thank you. We are now down to item number 8 on our agenda, a request for proposal for internet service providers to provide broadband services on behalf of Cleveland, Empire, Glen Arbor, and Casson Township. Patricia.
And that's the very motion I wish to make. You just stated it. Thank you. So I make that motion to authorize our county administrator to work with our emergency management director to develop a request for proposals for internet service providers to provide broadband service on behalf of Cleveland, Empire, Glen Arbor, and Casson Townships.
Any discussion?
I just want to clarify, because I had some calls about that. This is simply a request to develop a proposal. We're not going forward or anything. If it does go forward, if there is interest, that will come back to the board. The board will have to review it and make a decision. Because there's some confusion thinking that we were going forward in these townships with services and we had a plan in place. So I know all of you know that. I just want to make sure everyone else knows that.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
Well, along that same line, though, we sort of do have a plan, but what we haven't had an update on yet is the funding. So once we have that funding, we'll be
Yeah,
able
it
to
could
move forward
very
with
well.
that plan. But so do we have an idea when we might hear about that funding?
I think
Well,
I'll probably, go ahead.
No, but we were at the same meeting.
Well, yeah, talk about the.
Okay, we were at the Northern Michigan Associated County, USA Most Common. That covers most of the counties from Saginaw up to the bridge. And I actually asked that question because there's all these rumors. There's no question the money's there. and it's federal money that's in the state.
Well,
It has
ARPA
to be
dollars.
allocated, pardon?
We're talking ARPA dollars.
Yes.
So we have another plan also. I was referring to
Oh,
our
okay.
other
Well,
plan.
we're talking about the ARPA money, because there is
Okay.
plenty of money out there to fund, to double every amount that the counties in A3 counties have received. That has not had any movement. There's some discussion. There may be some action in September on that. But as you know, we've heard different scenarios and different timelines for the last several years on what's going to go forward. So it's hard to predict. Legally, they have to allocate that money by 2024. So it could happen as early as September. It could happen during the lame duck session after the election, or it could happen sometimes in 2023. So that's the ARPA funding that we're talking about. Because obviously that would have a tremendous impact on the county and how we go forward. There is some grants that are in the process of being funded. There's a statewide initiative, you know, the broadband, but the funds have not been allocated yet to that. If those funds are allocated, I think we'd be the first to jump in, because we do have a plan and we do have proposals. We are going forward with the tower here on the main campus. We look at other options, so I think we're in very good shape. That once there are some specific guidelines, that we'd be ready to apply for those funding.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved 7-0. We now are down to our item on septic, potential next steps. Commissioner Olguer.
I would move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners forward a request to the Benzie Leelanau Board of Health to write and approve a time of transfer septic ordinance for Leelanau County.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Commissioner Rushton?
I would like to make a statement in regards to this. We as commissioners serve our citizens best when we implement programs or policies with the least cost that provides effective solutions and resolve problems for our citizens. Instead of working on a process to identify and correct water and or septic issues for compliance, protecting our waters in a responsible way, my colleagues have chosen to bring down the arm of big government and punish our responsible citizens by passing a blanket ordinance. You do a disservice to our citizens for not targeting the issue and coming up with cost-effective solutions. I find that unconscionable.
Thank you. Commissioner Lautner?
Well, I couldn't say any better than that. What we have here is a motion to approve more taxation, more regulation, and create bigger government, all in one neat package for our citizens. It's unnecessary, and I will support it.
Any other comments or questions? It's been moved and seconded. There's no more discussion. Shall we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Algar,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner,
No,
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No,
Commissioner Stoll,
yes,
Chairman Wessel,
Yes.
5-2.
Thank you. We're now down on item 10, the Administration Committee and Mental Health Memorandum of Understanding.
Yeah, this is a follow-up from discussion we've had the last several months. As you know, from last week's meeting, the proposed memo of understanding between the 6 counties to go forward and investigate ways to keep the hardship going by most likely changing some of the bylaws and articles of incorporation, and basically saying that Grand Traverse County would pick up the cost of a consultant And that basically all 6 counties work together to try to find a solution in a timely, cost-effective manner. I can tell you since last Tuesday, I believe 4 counties have agreed to this. No one has proposed any language changes in the agreement. There's some concerns whether 2 may pass it or not, but at least as of now, there was no change in language, because I mentioned last week, there wasn't any change in language. Everyone had to agree with it, so as of now, we're going forward with the memo of understanding as proposed. I said, here's 4 counties, at least 4 will agree, the other 2 may or may not. If they don't, I'll provide an update at our next meeting.
Questions? Wanted to add on to that, that the Northern Lakes Community Mental Health Board is meeting, their monthly meeting is here this month on Thursday at 12 noon, and the community room will be the committee of the whole meeting, and at 2 o'clock will be, or 2:15 will be the board meeting. So the public would be welcome, and obviously any of us would be welcome to join that meeting at 12 noon for the committee of the whole.
Then on September 12th, 6 county administrators and maybe the board chairs will be meeting in Cadillac. And so we'll have an update on how we're going to proceed at our September executive committee.
Any other questions for Chuck? Yes.
What's the timeline on resolving the issue there? Do we have an idea?
Well, the Grand Traverse County has been the most local. They have not officially notified the community mental health that they're proceeding. So right now, there is no timeline. One county has to trigger that process. That has not occurred yet. We're hoping by all 6 counties to agree to work together to change the bylaws, maybe the articles of incorporation, maybe the governance that will resolve many of the issues. Because as I mentioned before, if the 6 county partnership is dissolved, all the assets of community mental health have to be sold. The deal with the MERS retirement system has to be dealt with. There has to be a plan approved by the state that will continue guarantee services for at least 2 years, including employment of the current staff. So it's a very complex issue. And yet every county has to have some type of partnership. There's no question a county like ourselves could not stand by ourselves and provide the services. So we're thinking instead of taking the approach of dissolving 6 county partnership, that has some issues. All 6 agree there's need to update, because the original one was done over 10 years ago. And there's been some issues that have surfaced, but can we resolve those issues and still maintain the structure? Or do we truly need to look at a different structure, which could mean a 2 county partnership, a 3 county partnership? Prior to 2003, we were in a 2 county partnership. So it's a complex issue, but as of now, none of the 6 counties have notified community mental health that they wish to withdraw from the partnership. Once that happens, there's a 2-year window that has to happen to the final conclusion. And that means either new partnerships or new structure. But the challenge is, as I mentioned, if that does happen, all the assets have to be sold. That includes the buildings, and includes the MERS, the retirement liability and so forth. So it's very complex. So at least the 6 administrators and board chairs saying, let's work together and resolve what the issues are by addressing those issues, and maybe we can save the 6 county partnerships. Because some counties seem to be pleased with the services too, so it's not all 6 are on the same page, because all 6 have different issues and different quality of services and different clientele that they're serving. So it's a very complex issue.
I would think that each county has a different need from the agency, and maybe, I'm not sure, and I don't sit on those boards, but maybe some of the counties just are not getting the service that they feel they're getting, that they're paying for.
And some boards want to have a greater role in the services provided and the greater voice in the governance structure too. So those are issues that we feel that at least let's try to work these out versus blowing up the entire system and then trying to rebuild something that's going to be very difficult.
Thank you for the update.
So at this point, there is no timeline because no county has gone through the formal process of notifying them that they're withdrawn from the partnership.
Other questions or comments? Thank you. On to the Leland Dam Authority.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to have a
Yes,
motion
yes.
to approve the memorandum?
Yes.
Can we do that without finding out for sure that everybody's on board?
Well, if they pull out, then we'll bring it back up, but as of now, okay.
I would make that motion to recommend I would move that the Board of Commissioners authorize the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners Chairman to sign the memorandum of understanding between Leelanau County and the other 5 counties, Grand Traverse, Osaki, Roscommon, Wexford, and Crawford, in hopes that we can move this process forward to a resolution.
Support.
Any further discussion on that resolution? Okay, it's been moved and second. All those in, we gotta do a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Solis-Little,
Yes.
Chairman Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Algar,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
7-0.
Well, go ahead, since you're the rep.
One other issue on that, we did hear from the executive director of the Northern Michigan Regional Entity. And they have reached out and have agreed to help us find an interim CEO and also proceed and help us manage the CEO search process. And that will be helpful. Everybody was pleased to hear that, I believe. Thank you. Now on to the Leland Dam Authority.
Yes, so I did some research and we've been talking about this for 5 years. It started in 2017 when they were talking about expanding the road commission from 3 to 5. And that happened in 2018. And then the discussion came up because some new road commissioners came on in 2019. And then I realized they were serving on 2 other boards because that's the way the county structured it. So I have a legal opinion. I think it was very well done in 2019. That basically discusses the membership of the Board of Public Works and Dam Authority. I'll pass it off, a very simple term. You as a board have the option of restructuring those boards and appointing them and determine what the memberships are, if there aren't criteria or not, if you're on the public. So basically, it's the simple response is the 7 you have the authority to restructure the Board of Public Works and the Dam Authority. The only mandate is the Drain Commissioner has to sit on the Board of Public Works. It could be 5 members. It was 3 members. It could be, it's up to all of you. And so last week you said you'd like to do well, last week I mentioned I would get the legal opinion. I found it, so I'll just pass it out. And you can have a dialogue, maybe the future meeting, how you wish to proceed. If you like to have a dialogue in terms of actual legal process, I can get that to you next month. So.
Any immediate questions for Chad on that?
I think last week, Mr. Green was here, who's the chairman of both, and he endorsed the concept of restructuring. So it's not a controversial issue with them. In fact, I think someone would be glad if you restructure.
Yeah, it sounded like.
Yes.
On a different note, but relevant to the dam, I see that in our inbox today, we received the appraisal on the dam. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see that. I'm not sure what this is telling us. Is this telling us that we need to construct a new dam or bring this dam up to compliance?
Honestly, I've not read it. It came in late this afternoon, I think, when we were in a meeting here. So I knew it was completed, but I have not had a chance to review it.
I was alarmed at the ticket price of 4.6 million. 4.7, 4.6. So if you could get back to us on that and kind of help us understand. What
Yeah, I think we'll put that on the September agenda. So we have a better standing and maybe have the consultant be part of the dialogue. This complex.
And I think we talked about having the composition of the dam authority on our September executive board meeting as well to talk about that so that we can handle that when we're taking care of appointments.
I guess the point I would like to make by bringing that up is our good citizens who volunteer to serve on our different boards and committees may not have the expertise needed, to operate the dam. So I think it would be important for us to take a look at what type of leadership we need for that project or that ongoing project, you would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? We'll revisit that in September. Now we're at the part of our agenda where we're any review of financials, any financial questions?
Everybody been through them? Any questions on them? Well, I guess I do. I wondered why it looked like we were doing water testing in our parks again. It looked like the third time. I'm sure if you read them, you would see that they were in 2 other times. So, Jared.
Yes. You were talking about the testing of the water.
Yeah, you've got an for Veronica Valley again, Old Settlers, the 4-H Park, Mass Kimberly.
No, we were talking about when those invoices were dated. Let me, I'll look at those and I'll get back to you.
I believe those are mandated testing. I know we
Well,
get.
they are, but
mandated.
we had, I believe the last one I asked the question, and they were in there twice.
Oh, okay, got it.
So if it's all they just keep wanting us to test, that's okay. But I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Make sure we're not duplicating those.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jared?
Well, just once you have a large turnout here, would you like to introduce who Jared is?
Well, I think you ought to do
Okay,
the
all right,
introduction of
all right.
Jared, but welcome, Jared.
And Jared,
Thank
if you keep your comments under 40 minutes. that'd be-
Oh, boy.
But I brought Jared to our last executive committee, but many people in the audience were not here, so I just want to formally introduce Jared. Jared is our new finance director here as of August 1st. He has a strong background in financing, but do you want to just give a background?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've lived in Michigan for quite a while, on and off in my life, mostly over in Gaylord. Graduated from high school there, and I've been working in Gaylord for the last 8 years doing audits of governments, specifically Indian tribal governments. So I wanted to move over more towards TC and kind of still work in that field of governmental accounting, and this seemed like a really good fit for me. So happy to be here. It's been a lot of learning the last couple of weeks, and luckily you guys have a lot of people here who can help me.
So the last month, Jared has been meeting with our staff and trying to learn the budget process. And we're making good progress.
Yes, we are.
And you'll have more interaction with Jared once we start the budget process here. But Jared, for people in the public, if they want to contact you, what's the best way to contact you? If they have any financial questions.
Oh, wow. Probably email. I do have a bunch of cards that I can hand out.
And it's on the website too.
Yeah.
It's just under finance department.
Yeah, I'll be sure to see it.
Or if you just call our office and ask for Jared, you'll get transferred.
I think I'm the only one.
I think you know Jared.
Yeah.
Just Commissioner Rushing.
Yes, I heard a rumor and I was hoping that you could either lend some truth to it or
Sure.
correct it. But I heard that one of your comments during your interview process, I think it was, that the county can rest assured when it comes to our annual audits, that
Oh, okay.
that you would ensure.
Well, I mean, I'm coming into it right now, so
Right, but
I'm
did you
still
not
learning
make
a
that
lot.
statement that you would
I said,
ensure that our books.
I said that I can assure you that I can put together the governmental fund financials and the front financial statements and those, I saw that was something that was in the audit report. And I have a lot of experience doing that. That is kind of what I did before coming here. So yes, I can absolutely fix some of those issues for you.
I was being silly.
No, when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, I can absolutely help you guys out, that is what I've been doing.
Well,
So
we're glad to hear it, that is a truthful statement.
I just thought, I'm so used to having him here and going around. I don't think I missed his last name. I think Jared Prince.
Yes.
I don't think I said that, so.
Yeah.
And if you turn it around and say Prince Jared, that would still.
I like that more, actually.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'd go that.
Not yet.
Any
You gotta
other
work-
questions
you
for
gotta
Jared?
earn it.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
We now have committee reports, recommendations, and resolutions. Yes, Gwen?
The beta meeting will be here in this room at 1 o'clock on August 25th. It's the fourth Thursday at 1 o'clock. And they will be here, and we would love to hear from any of you. And as your representative on the beta board, I would love to hear from you anytime. And you too.
Yeah.
Don't we have good news in regards to Beta's advancement on their project?
Yes, they own the property. So it is, it's a go.
It's a go. After this.
Because winter is imminent, they're gonna, oh no, I didn't say that. No, it's a long way away, but they'll begin construction in the spring.
So that's a project you
Started
began-
with, yes.
You began the project when you were on the board.
Yeah.
Any other
Very
committee
exciting.
reports? Thank you. Any special reports by staff or commissioners or agencies? We're now at our last public comment agenda item of the meeting. Please come forward and identify yourself, Mr. Knapp.
I warned you last week, but I'd be back this week. Charles Knapp, Cleveland Township. Okay, well, you passed the septic ordinance as we expected. Actually, this wasn't going to be one of my comments, but having the health department write the ordinance, what do they know about septic? These are the people that took Whitmer's unconstitutional COVID orders and gleefully enforced them and had to be taken to court all over again. They love their power. I think that a written statement from a licensed septic company that we cleaned out, everything works, everything's clean. Here's what we did. Should suffice to meet the requirements of that ordinance. I don't think the health department should have anything to do with it. Bluntly put, I don't think they know what they're talking about. In my opinion, they didn't know what they were talking about COVID. So I don't know what they think they're talking about with regard to septic. So that having been said, I'll make this recommendation again. When presentations are made, this is what's done at the executive session. When people get up here to make presentations, they can bore the audience to death. They sit here, they read them, they're on a screen, nobody can see. And I think that the commissioners should have those presentations in hand in time to review them, read them, figure them out, and then have the actual presentation session for questions. Otherwise, like I say, we're sitting back there in the audience. We don't know what they're talking about. We don't have a copy of it. And half the time they sit there reading it in a monotone that, could put you to sleep in the middle of a tornado. So that's my suggestion about presentations. As far as voting machines go, everybody who gets up here and complains about Dominion, in particular voting machines, seems to have the same complaint. They don't trust them. Okay. I would suggest, I used to live in Carson City, Nevada, and in there we had a punch card system. You got your ballot, you put it in a sealed deal, you moved it down one side, you hit a punch pin, and punched out however you wanted to vote. Then they took them out and they scanned them through what amounted to a Scantron machine. As far as I know, none of it was connected to the internet. That's the big problem. As long as the machine's not and cannot be connected to the internet, the machine's fine. So I think that really is the step that ought to be taken. And you sure knew when people were voting, because they had a number of voting booths set up and you could hear the pins popping up and down the line, and then somebody'd stop and you figured, oh, they don't know what they're going to do. But it worked, and it worked very well. If you wanted to actually know how to do it, you could contact the Carson City, Nevada clerk's office, and they could tell you how they did it. If I had my way, that's how I do it. That would take away all the argument. And I don't believe Michigan was lost because of people meddling with the Dominion machines anyway. I know it was lost because the Democrats shut down the TCF counting center, ran the Republican poll watchers out, boarded up the windows so nobody could see what was going on, and kept it closed for 8 hours until they could truck in enough votes marked only for Biden and get the Michigan legislature to accept them. That's why our 16 votes went to Biden, not Trump. That's what happened. They shut down that center. That's a fact. That is not something you pluck out of the air or came off some right-wing nut. That happened. That center was shut down, and it was shut down all night. And miraculously enough, when it opened up, they cooked up enough votes. And then Benson conducted an audit. Guess how that turned out? What do you expect a Democrat Secretary of State to say? So anyway, but it wasn't because of Dominion voting machines that happened. It was because they shut the counting center down and simply trucked enough ballots in, unverified ballots, to throw the vote. But anyway, I think that punch out system we used in Carson City, Nevada was really a neat system. Let's see, yeah. And there was a better get out the vote effort in Leelanau County. That's what it went for Trump. 2001 people voted in 2020 than voted in 2016. And the lady got up here talking about Soros and the rest of them. I was going to follow her, but I decided not to. I wanted to see what other people were going to say. But she commented that nobody complained about voting machines in 2016. Well, 2016, they thought Hillary was going to win. Okay, thank you. You got it.
Anybody else? Dr. Conley?
Hi, thank you. It's Barb Conley in Northport, and also an appointed member of the Board of Health. I do want to thank you for passing the septic ordinance. This type of ordinance has worked extremely well for Benzie County for the last 30 years. Everybody's happy with it, including people who purchase property and don't have surprises. And, you know, the Board of Health oversees the health department, which has an environmental health division, which is very professional. And you've heard from them many times, so I don't have to tell you how professional they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Dawkins.
Kathy Dawkins. Thank you for passing the septic. It's nice to know that every now and then what I want gets passed. And I don't care about my taxes going to it. I'm all for it. Also, just a comment, and I know you can't respond, it's okay. When you do this educational thing, because I didn't even know you were doing them this summer. So I have a question. It's my understanding that those ballot machines are never hooked up to the internet at any point. So I would like if you could address that issue, and if they are, at what time they are hooked up to the internet. Also, the other thing is, when I can't make the meetings, I watch it on YouTube, and I noticed that you guys have the camera off to the side. But the last executive meeting, you had it towards the back of the room, which is actually much nicer for those of us who can't be here, because then we can see everybody sitting here. When you do it off to the side, like with Commissioner Rustin and possibly Commissioner Lautner, it's hard for us to see who's ever sitting over there. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jim Wigan, Bingham Township. I'd just like to reiterate something I said to you in an email on July 27th about the septic system, just to go over it again. As you're looking at the new ordinance, I really encourage you to consider that it only be for when there's a sale and not a transfer type. And that goes back to ability to pay. The classic tax system is based upon ability to pay. And if you are doing it when there's a transfer, there may not be any money changing hands if you add a family member, for instance, and you could end up having people have to pay money that they don't have the money for. If you do it only on a sale, you can include it as part of the documents on the sale. You can include it as just like a title search. You can require it as part of the closing documents. And I really encourage you to consider that. The second thing is that I really think it would be good to understand the reasons why the systems that have been documented as failing in Empire, for instance, why they really failed. Was it because the system was environmentally bad, it actually failed, or it was on the verge of failing and it was going to cause pollution? Or was it because it didn't follow some administrative rule that somebody has decided is the best thing to do? You know, the rules, the codes that are put in for new construction are designed to keep something from failing over an extended period of time. If something is not, if a septic system is currently functioning, I don't believe that just because it doesn't pass an administrative code, that you should force the homeowner to fix that, to make it to code, if it's not failed. I feel that's going a step too far, and that you really should take a look at when they say, if I recall correctly, they said 20% of the systems in Empire failed. Yeah, to me, it seems very unlikely that 20% of them had environmental issues. Because if that was true, you could smell the sewer in Empire. I just don't believe that's true. So I don't think you should force people to comply with a code that's designed for new construction, for a long-term safety of new construction, if the system has been maintained and has not failed at the current time and is not in imminent danger of failing. I think that you should look at it and say, is it functioning first? That should be the first question, not is it compliant with a rule that's been set up. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Any commissioner comments?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Kowski. I didn't see your hand.
Thank you. The gentleman who just spoke talked about the rat's nest you're going to have with this. Have fun. In winter of 2000, the EPA wrote this document. In the last 2 decades, this is an EPA document. The perception of on-site wastewater treatment and the role it will play in the future has dramatically changed. For much of the 20th century, on-site treatment thought to be appropriate only for remote rural homes. In more urbanized areas, beyond the reach of existing sewers, on-site systems were assumed only to be an interim method of treatment that would be quickly abandoned as sewers were extended. It is now widely recognized in the United States that conventional sewerage will never be able to meet the demand for wastewater treatment because of both monetary and non-monetary costs. It will be on-site systems that will provide the necessary treatment needed for unsewered areas, but only if they're accepted as effective and reliable systems. Now, I argue that our county health department has done an excellent job of this. We're imposing a new bureaucratic foolishness on them for no reason whatsoever except to use taxpayers' money to pee it away. Now, here's my interpretation of this document. Translation of the United States Environmental PA statement. It's a classic effort of well-intentioned government bureaucracy, left to do its own thing, gone awry because the US Congress established it with no accountability. The Supreme Court just struck down a whole bunch of that stuff. It now has to reinvent itself and create a new raison d'etre. So Congress will disgorge trillions so it can make more mistakes. We at the EPA set up the flawed and defective purpose from the 60s to 2000 to construct the most expensive sewers possible everywhere in the US and connect every home and everyone to them. We plan to do it with free grant monies from every US inhabitant's Uncle Sam. We've discovered, though, that it isn't enough money in the world to ever do that. We pursued our flawed and defective purpose for 40 years. We're doing that. We have neglected to make any effort to work on practical and scientific work to improve the performance of the most reliable, well-proven sewage disposal now currently in use at over 20 million locations. The on-site economical treatment system consists of a septic tank, a drain field, and residential properties. These are functioning well and continue to do so for many years, as they have done in the past, but a minimum of cost and little federal bureaucratic intervention. We're sorry for this stupid mistake at the EPA, so we'll reinvent ourselves into a more intrusive bureaucracy to harass homeowners with on-site systems. We'll begin directly regulating on-site systems, even as we admit we don't know shit from Shinola about them. But give us a few years to make another big mistake, as we've taken over your properties with our misguided efforts, as we have done for the past 40 years. We at the EPA know homeowners are too dumb to understand on-site systems are practical, simple, and have worked well for over 100 years. So we know you can't wait for us to screw it up for you. That's what we're doing at the county level. And you guys just don't know. You always wander away from 46.11. You want to self-initiate every damn project you can find and think you're doing good. In this case, you're not doing any good. You're just wasting our money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for being here tonight. Any commissioner comments? Yes, Commissioner Lutton.
I just have one. There's some statements made that Benton County has not had problems with their ordinance. I talked to a commissioner this week. He said, and in fact, they did have a lot of problems with their ordinance down there. Nope, not everyone was happy with it. As another statement that was made. And as I shared last week, I know problems with home closings on sales because the health department didn't get the letter out in time to let the homeowner know it was approved, because I had to help a homeowner with one myself. So it's surprising when I, repeatedly heard from the commissioner that he had heard from people in Benton County that their water has not been made to be cleaner over this ordinance. And yet we're going to enforce it blanket over our county when we had the ability to be leaders and to design something that would have worked for our county and not punished all those very responsible homeowners. We could have targeted where we do believe there are problems, and we could have targeted where we know we have no record of systems. But I'm going to leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Thank you. Commissioner Older.
I would like to say, first, thank you everybody for coming. I am gratified that we are taking a step to take care of each other. We do this because we care about each other and we live in community when we live in community, we do things for those around us. If I lived out in a prairie somewhere and no one lived within 5 miles, that would be one thing, but we live in community. I'm drinking the water that comes out of my well, and I'm trusting in everyone in my neighborhood and in my community that they are caring for their septic and that they know how. So I believe we take this step because we care about each other, and because we respect the responsibility that comes from living in community. So I thank my fellow commissioners for being willing to go forward with this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? We have some amendments and transfers to approve. Commissioner Lautner?
Yes. Jen, Jared, thank you. Jen,
Just a correction.
okay, there's questions.
I accidentally just scratched out one and I like her to do it, so she signed it, a revised one that looks pretty.
Thank you. So these are prepared by you, Jen?
Yeah, prepared by me. I get to, I schooled, I should say, I'm trying to educate to Jared the way that we've done it in the past, but we're certainly going to look to move to the future and how he'd like to present these and the understanding of what we do and the whys. So this large packet that you have, yes, in 2022-007, this was the daily work to get to this first result of 3 pages. So he and I are going to go over these the next few days, and this will help him prepare for when he has questions for your budget. And I think that this is a great start for him to learn what was prepared for 2022, what needed to be amended, what will be rolled for 23, and then he can start his process of looking at this information and seeing it through what I call an auditor's skepticism. So the little hairs on the back of his neck when something doesn't look quite right as well. So we're looking forward to working with each other and just going over the differences of what we have here in regards to our revenues, our expenditures, our funds.
I would move that we approve amendment number 22007 and 22008.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there anything you want to share about the transfer for?
Absolutely. This transfer is going to bring dispatch up to 75% funding. 911 dispatch is supplemented by the general fund. Also, in your claims and accounts, you had a $276,000 bill for the Motorola payment for the radios. That was a project that was spread over a number of years. And so to institute that payment gets made, that is going to happen tomorrow, and the funds with this transfer into that. You also have your E911 fund that funds dispatch as well as the radio communications. So you have one set that's a state grant and the other that is your surcharge on your phones. And so that also helps pay for your radio, your Motorola bill that's coming due.
Thank you. So I move we approve transfer number 22-005.
Support.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve claims and accounts, $642,400.32.
Second.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Move to approve post audit, $2,547,376.47.
Second.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Rushing, do you have a motion?
I will make that motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.